here as always. God, it's been the last month has been really challenging. I've been changing my day jobs has been a real weight on my mind. So I apologize for the frequency in posting, but I've been having some pretty good conversations with people lately, and hopefully I'll be sharing those with you week to week in the next upcoming weeks here. Today on the show is my friend comedian Emily Winter, and I'm hoping she's on her way now. I'm hoping because she's one of these. She's a comedian that I know through her stand-up, and we've talked briefly about TV writing and other projects. So I'm hoping I could learn a bit more about that world today, because this is how it works. I don't know if you're out there, if you're trying to be a creative person. It seems like, if you remember that scene in Good Will Hunting where you're just looking at that impossible math equation, that's what I think trying to make any sort of incremental progress in show business is like. But Emily seems to be someone who's not only maybe close to, I consider a peer, but also is in that world. So I really I'm really hoping I could get, really hoping to find a direction I could point myself in, because there's something that comes with this stability of work. I don't even know if this is an American value. I'm sure it isn't. I'm sure lots of people who might listen to this value themselves on their hard work and the pride of that. But something in the stability and the fortune of being employed and being employed in something you want to do, which, God, not enough people have the opportunity to do that. There's just something about that. So it's something I'm still chasing. I'm trying to figure it out, and it's causing me a lot of stress, and I hope that I figure it out sooner rather than later for the sake of my life and the people's lives around me. So we'll see. We'll get into it a bit with Emily, and I'd also, because I only know her from what I've seen on stage, so hopefully I get to know who she is as a person as well, and I think we're going to do that. So I'll check in with you after my chat with Emily Winter, and she'll be here shortly, and we'll see where this goes. All right, thank you. A follow from Sunday could be right around the corner.
I'm going to turn my phone over, though, so I'm not an asshole.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do the same. This is, I think, the modern equivalent of, like, you know how in movies they used to, like, people would, like, put their guns on the bar?
Yeah, it's totally like that. Yeah, we're not going to kill each other by ignoring each other.
Well, fingers crossed. We're not an old married couple, so hopefully that's not the way this goes down. That would be an interesting podcast, though. Like, if someone's dead by the end of it.
Oh yeah, somebody dies at the end of this podcast, and there's only two people, and one of them is the host that keeps hosting. That's a good podcast. It's just a murder podcast. You just kill people.
Exactly. It's like dinner theater, only like less expensive.
When I was just home in Chicago, and I asked my whole family what their podcast would be if they could have a podcast, and my sisters would be about astrology, and my mom, oh God, I can't remember.
I'm very eager to hear what your mom would do.
I think she was just like, well, the news, and we were just like, well, okay. I mean, you don't listen to podcasts, do you? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think my mom knew what a podcast was until like 2 years ago, because I posted something on Facebook about how going home for Christmas is going to teach my mom what a podcast is, and then all her friends, because she's not on Facebook, told her I wrote that, and then I was like, oh, this is a podcast. So I like played, like, I think I played Jim Brewer, like telling Mark Maron about how he was like, well, Lauren came to me and was like, what do you think about Mark Maron? And he was like, oh, this is what I think.
Oh, and that's how you introduced your mom to
to what podcasting. Yeah.
Was she mad at you for writing about her on Facebook?
No, my mom doesn't really get mad about that stuff because I'm not
mean.
Like, I'm not controversial. I will say anything I write, what I write on Facebook is either, hey, I have a show that you're probably not going to come to, or here's a random thing that's not meant to elicit any passionate arguments.
Okay.
Because I just don't have the energy for it. If I'm going to passionately argue with someone, I'd rather do it face to face.
Or choose, yeah. I just get a little dirty, and I know my mom is like, I don't know what to believe anymore. Like today, I wrote that because I've been sick for like over a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm skinny and I'm weak and I'm foggy, and that means I'm sexy, but like I'm gonna barf on your dick or something. But I'll watch out, I'll barf on your dick, and like my mom. I just don't think she knows what to believe anymore. She's like, so are you sick? And I'm like, yeah. And then it's like, well, are you running around New York City barfing on dicks? You know.
Does your mom sound like, I have this idea of what people from the Midwest sound like, and it's like, are you, and it's like that sort of Minnesota nice kind of accent.
Yeah,
like,
no, actually.
Are you barfing on dicks out there, Emily?
I'm from Chicago, and so
What
my
part?
mom, actually I'm from the south side of Chicago, but my parents did the white flight when I was 8, and then they moved to the south suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom has really thick A's.
Yeah.
But that's like a little different from Minnesota. But like even when I get to O'Hare Airport in Chicago, even the lady in the airport that's telling you to like get your luggage, she's like, get your luggage, and I was like, I'm home. Yeah, so there's the A's from that, and then I don't know why, because when I get sometimes on stage when I'm getting really passionate.
Mm-hmm.
My Midwestern accent comes out, and it's a combination of Chicago A's and more of a Wisconsin, Minnesota, like with the long O's and stuff. And I think
Right.
it's just because I went to school in Wisconsin, and I went to college there, and I don't know. I have like this totally, okay, this is my theory, that it's not the first place I got drunk, but it's where I started getting drunk consistently, just among all of these Wisconsinites. And I feel like it seeped into my subconscious in the wee hours of the morning. Like
Right.
after 20 beers, like it just goes in, and yeah. I mean, there's similarities between Wisconsin and Chicago. Whatever. This is boring, but
No, it's interesting. It's interesting to me because let me ask you this: do I sound like I have an accent? Because my girlfriend, who's from New York, and I'm from Maryland, which New Yorkers consider the South, even though I don't.
Yeah, I don't
like
either.
she says, I have a Maryland accent, which I don't.
I don't know what a
here.
Maryland accent is.
Well, a hardcore Maryland accent's like, yeah, hun, we're gonna go down to the water and watch the fireworks after the O's game.
Oh.
Like that Balmer.
Okay.
As opposed to Baltimore.
Yeah. No, well, I think that you just have a very unique way of speaking. So if somebody was doing a Will Carey impression, I might be able to pick it out, but I don't think it's the accent so much as like your like unique cadence. And yeah.
Oh, thanks. Mm-hmm. So what's let me ask you this. So growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, are you going into the city a lot? I have this idea that's a more relaxed pace in the middle of the country.
It's very relaxed in the middle of the country. I would go, I think, like, you know, when I was a teenager, I would go to see bands with my friends downtown. But it was sort of like a big undertaking getting, you know, because it's like somebody has to stay sober, and we're driving back. And so I mean, I would mostly go for shows, but I wouldn't go to like, you know, when I was in high school, I wouldn't go to bars, and I would go to like museums with my family, and that's probably it. But yeah, everything's bigger. The people are bigger. The men are taller. Everyone's nicer. That's all.
It sounds pretty. A lot of it sounds very appealing. I almost moved to Chicago after college, and then I think I just kind of got fixated on New York.
You're short in Chicago. No, I'm kidding.
No, that's what I think. Like when I look at whenever those like Duluth trading commercials come on for like big jeans or like like underwear that doesn't hurt. I'm like, oh, I could literally fit in there because I can't go to stores in New York and buy clothes that fit. I got to buy everything online.
Ugh, that sucks. That sucks. I feel like I'm more petite in the Midwest, and in New York, I feel like a giant monster. Yeah. No, I mean, I love it there. I love the Midwest, but like when I go back, like, I love to go back up to Wisconsin. I just went for a wedding, and then I went back to Madison, and I love I don't like being in Chicago doesn't thrill me so much as being in like the real like heart of the Midwest and going to like small town bars and eating cheese curds and like I love that. And
oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, playing darts and I don't know, just having space. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Like so that was kind of what your early years were in the Midwest. I'm curious I'm picturing you. So you're like a probably teenager when you start going into the city to see bands.
I mean, I think my parents always took us there for I don't know. We'd go see the Nutcracker every winter time.
Oh, absolutely.
So my dad works downtown. He's always worked downtown. So
what did your folks do?
They're both lawyers. My dad mostly did medical malpractice. He does a bunch of different stuff now. And my mom does real estate, and she was working full time when I was growing up. And then something happened at a Christmas party, and she quit. And there was a big fight that with my parents had with her boss at a Christmas party a million years ago. So then she just started her own practice out of our house. Yeah, so I have a little sister, and we just we would just like make fun of her law lingo all the time. Like we would just like walk around doing impressions of our mom, being like, "Oh no, just throw it in escrow," because it's just like all these like random real estate words that we picked up. But I still don't know what any of them mean.
Yeah, no, okay. So real estate and medical malpractice law. Interesting, because like I've been like law. I find law really interesting but my girlfriend's parents are both lawyers, and
so she doesn't.
No, she's not. She's not a lawyer.
Yeah, but she's not interested at all, right?
No.
Yeah, same. I'm like, ugh.
my extent of legal terms is like I worked as a file clerk in a law firm for a few months, so I know what like, discovery and things like that, and I've been watching The Good Wife. That show. So there's lots of like, just I randomly shout like objection.
So you could write a pop song about law lingo if you wanted to.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
Right. Like
that's all you need. That's the extent of any knowledge base you need, I think. Yeah.
No, I agree. So what bands were you going into town to see?
Oh man, my favorite show that I saw in high school was Less Than Jake.
I love them.
Yeah.
They're so fun live.
At the, it was so fun. Oh my God. Now I can't remember the name of the little freaking club in Chicago. It's this.
I'm trying to think what it might be called.
Make me crazy. The Metro. That's what it is.
That's it. That's like the big place to play in Chicago.
But it's pretty small. And it was great. And the guy with the dreads, Roger handed me his pick. And I was so excited. It was like the most exciting thing that ever happened to me. And when I brought it home, like my mom like really understood how much it meant to me. And she framed the pick, and I had it framed in my bedroom in high school. And then I brought it with me to college. And I had it framed in my college bedrooms too. Oh, it's so embarrassing.
That's not embarrassing. That's cool. I still have a drumstick from an Anti-Flag concert.
Oh, really?
That's awesome. From college. No,
do you have it here? Or do you have it in your old house?
I think it's still in my old house, but I have one from a Bare Naked Ladies concert I went to recently. I grew up on that kind of, like pop punk and that kind of punk. Not so much like what some of my friends would describe as real punk. It took me a while to discover that, but I was like loved Blink-182, loved Green Day, all New Found Glory, everything on Drive Thru Records, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Less Than Jake I saw in Baltimore with Real Big Fish, and that was probably the most fun I've ever had.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it was a blast. How old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, so how old were you when you saw them?
Probably like 22.
Okay.
22 or 23.
Yeah.
So they were doing like a Price is Right themed tour. So,
fun.
so they would like have people from the crowd be like, oh, okay, what is the retail value of Roger's bass guitar? $2,200. You are correct. And then they would have you spin a wheel or play a Price is Right game to say, okay, we're going to play songs from this album.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was a lot of Losing Streak. They played almost all of Losing Streak.
That is good luck.
So that was a great show, and Real Big Fish, for as I think as cynical about the music industry as they can appear because of their one big hit song, still put on a really fun show.
That's awesome. Yeah, I bet that they would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Should I bring the microphone closer to me?
Yeah, you can pretty much get right on top of it.
Okay. Sorry, I just sat back, so I thought. Okay.
Oh, don't worry about it. So were you like a punk rock girl when you were in high school?
Yeah, I definitely tried to be, sort of. I just was home a couple weekends ago, and I found my little bondage skirt that I wore at a Warped Tour, and these like giant boots, and yeah, I mean, I tried. I didn't. I've been roasted a couple times recently, and when you get roasted, people really put it into words better than you can, and both of my opponents said that I look like a Care Bear, so it's kind of hard and I mean, if I'm a Care Bear at 32, you can only imagine at 16, so yeah, I mean, I think my attempts to look like pretty hard and cool. Okay, my first concert I ever went to was Smashing Pumpkins, and
nice.
I remember passing a woman who was like, they're letting children into this concert. And I was like, where's the child? And I was like, oh my God, I'm the child. So I doubt I looked half as cool as I thought I did.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that was I had the opposite reaction, is that I remember the moment when I started feeling too old to be at concerts for this style of music.
Oh, really? How old were you?
I wasn't that old. I'm trying to think. It was 2 years ago, so I was like 28.
Yeah.
Like I got to the point where I was like, okay, maybe I don't have to buy every All Time Low album that comes out. I saw them before they signed their major label, so I feel like I've grown with them a little bit.
Right.
But I was at the Starland Ballroom in New Jersey, which is a really great place, and the Starting Line, if you remember them.
No.
Their big song was that song, like, you can have the best of me. I'll play it for you after.
Okay.
So they're on like hiatus, but they play around Christmas time every year, and the show's crazy. And I by this point I wasn't like moshing anymore, but so it was like me, the girl I was dating at the time, and my friend Leo, and we were standing towards the back, and two things happened. First of all, one of the opening bands referenced Jimmy Eat World in one of their songs, and I was like, oh man, new bands are referencing the old bands I like. Oh,
as if they're like, that's my muse.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's probably like Mark Maron probably has people like comics who are like getting big, being like, your podcast is why I started stand up, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then the next day, because I just stood in the back of the whole time and I was sore, and I was like, oh no, I'm sore just from standing.
Oh no, we're so old.
No, but I love that story you just told, because, and I've seen one of your roast battles at the Stand against Jay Welsh. I'm not sure who else you're battling recently, but that story confirms, like, if we had known each other in high school, you probably would have been like one of my 3 friends.
Yeah. I had my friend group was small and tight, and we all really tried our hardest to be like punky little, I don't know, whatever we were.
Right.
It was, yeah.
Like, did you ever like pick up an instrument or play in bands? Or
yeah,
do any of that stuff?
bought a drum set for $50 when I was in high school. This kid didn't want it anymore, and like I was like, all right, cool, and he bought me a new cowbell. I should have just, I don't know, bought my own cowbell and not paid for anyway, I paid him $50 and I started taking drum lessons, and I have no rhythm. I can't dance. I can't really walk good. I don't know why. I just thought the drums were cool, but I've always had until I started and got used to doing stand-up, I hated other people hearing me ever do anything, so it was kind of a bad instrument to practice because I'd be too embarrassed to practice and have my family hear me, so I could only practice when they left. It was really dumb. Anyway, I brought my drums to college. I had them in college and played a little bit, but I'm just very bad at them. It's just not the right instrument for me, but it's fun. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I played piano when I was a kid. I'm just not musically inclined. It sucks. I wish I were. But yeah.
Right.
I sucked at that. I played that for a bunch of years. Just terrible. I don't know one key from the next. And then I can't sing. Oh man, that's the worst.
But was that like your first kind of inklings of creativity?
Oh no, I think I've always been a writer, and like I just always like really enjoyed writing, and I always I think like my parents put a lot of pressure on me to do well in school, and I did really well in school, but like the thing that my teachers would always like talk to me about was like my writing. Like that was a thing I needed to pursue, and and I really liked it, so I always sort of knew that I would get into that.
Yeah. What kind of stuff were you writing early on, like short stories, or did you, because I know that you've written for TV shows, and I wonder if that was a thought early on.
That was so, okay. It's so interesting to me how people like know about the jobs. Like I didn't know about jobs. I was like, oh, I'm a writer. And my parents, they're both lawyers and that's great, but they put themselves through college and they put each other through law school, and they're the first sort of people they're not the first college graduates. My grandpa went to college to play basketball, so but he was the only one in my family. So they both come from real like poor families that were not highly educated, and so I think like they didn't know either, and they couldn't really. No one knew. No one in my family. It never occurred to anybody to be like, television shows. Somebody writes them. Like I didn't have the thought that somebody wrote TV shows until I was 22. Like it never occurred to me.
Right.
And I feel like an idiot, but it's just what happened. So I was like, okay, I better just be a journalist. And so, because somebody writes the newspaper, I know that, So I did that in college, and I sort of decided like.
Where did you go to school, by the way?
I went to the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and I was like an editor at my college paper, and then I wrote like a humor column one year, and I loved that. I had the best time, but for some dumb reason, I ran for editor-in-chief for the next year. So anyway, before my senior year, I went to intern at the Associated Press in London, and that's the summer that those London train bombings happened. So I covered that for Associated Press. And it was really miserable, and I didn't like it. And it was, I mean, honestly, it was great clips for me,
Right.
But I was like, I don't like how you can't really get information, how everybody's giving you the runaround, how hard it is to really get information on big deal stories. And it was just like miserable to cover terrorism and bombings. And so then after my year of being an editor-in-chief, I was like, I just really liked that one year when I was writing like columns about getting drunk with my friends, and people like recognized me on the street. Like I loved that. I don't know how to do more of that. Meanwhile, I like got a job at the city newspaper, and I was just covering suburban news. Like what color is the slide going to be in the new playground? Like, oh my God. And I was just like, well, this also sucks. So
the high stakes chasing down sources and chasing down information for like big international incidents it's almost like in Hot Fuzz when he's like this, tough London cop, and then he goes to a sleepy town out in England.
Yes.
So,
but I didn't like either one. And it was kind of like within a year, I was able to see both the extremes of it. And I was like,
this is not for me.
This is not for me. This sucks. But I started writing a script. I was like, scripts have to be, so at some point, maybe I was 21. At some point during my senior year, I was like, there's got to be other writing jobs. Somebody writes television. Somebody writes those words, and it just like hit me. And so I started writing a script after college. And
what was it about?
It was about my student newspaper.
Okay.
It was just like the only experience that I had, and I was like, oh my God, my experiences in my student newspaper are the funniest things to have ever happened to anyone ever in the history of time. And so I was like, this is going to be big, and whatever.
Well, that's not a bad place to start. I feel like most people, you've got to kind of write what you've experienced before you can.
No, I think so. I would love to
out.
find it and read it now. I mean, it's in Word. It's like, you know, it's not even in script format. It's a big mess. But I moved home. I quit my job and I moved home
From London.
No, this after college. I was in Wisconsin, writing for the city newspaper in Madison. Mm-hmm. And I quit that job because I just like knew I didn't want to do it, and then moved home. My mom said I could live at home if I went on Jenny Craig. So she put me on Jenny Craig, and I was sort of like isolated and losing a bunch of weight and taking a script writing class at this like artsy college in Chicago. And then I ended up moving out here because I applied for an internship at the Colbert Report and just happened to get it. I had a really offbeat cover letter, and there happened to be a guy filling in for the woman who normally chooses the interns, and he was a weirdo, and it was just like good luck.
I want to ask about all that, but I'm still focused on your mom made you go do.
Oh yeah,
Jenny
my
Craig.
mom was like,
is this a common thing? Because she'll murder me if she listens to it, but she doesn't listen to this. I will say that is not the first time I've heard of a woman pressuring their daughter about their weight.
Yeah. I think my mom's so beautiful and was always just like really thin, and I think that she just wanted that for her kids, and so. But
that can fuck you up. Right?
Oh yeah. I'm super fucked up about my body, and I think that she knows. I think she gets it now that was maybe like my first diet. I lost 20 pounds when I was 8. Like I put myself on a crazy diet when I was 8 years old. So like my fat stuff is like probably like my biggest issue, like my biggest hurdle, like internally, whatever.
Right. Did you ever were you ever like diagnosed with like any sort of like dysmorphia or anything
I actually I only just started recently seeing a therapist for the first time, and she was like, she said it the other day or like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, I mean, it was nice to hear a professional say it. And it's funny because like today I was working on a commercial for a TV show, and I was looking at footage of a woman who has the exact same hair I do, and she's not fat at all. She looks great. And then I pictured, what if that was my face? Because she was like sort of turned, and I was like, oh my God, she looks so fat. Like, it's so funny. Like when I pictured it as me, I was like, oh my God, she looks fat. But when I like went back to her, I was like, no, she looks great, you know?
Right.
So I can never see myself the way that I am. And it's really hard.
And it's based off of, because you were probably, this has been like your entire life or relatively recently?
Oh no, my entire life. Like, so the first diet I did when I was 8. So it's since then. And I think, you know, there's like so many, I can't just be like, oh, it's all my mom's fault. There's so many factors that play into that. Like, you know, I am like, even when I'm at my absolute thinnest, like I am just like more like athletically built, like I have broad shoulders, like I can't help my body type, you know? So there's that, which like you're fighting against. And then of course, just like men and just like
you don't have to say anything else.
All of the things.
Just men.
Just men.
There's so many
I think
problems.
that like it's just like this like weird thing where so my mom, I had put on a ton of weight during college. I mean, I was just like not exercising, just living in my student newspaper, drinking incessantly whenever I could get a break, just to keep my mind from worrying, and eating cheese curds and just eating gross stuff all the time. And so
I can relate to that because I don't think, you know, I definitely remember like high schools, you know, my mom, and when I was in high school, my mom waking me up and giving me like a Slim Fast for breakfast.
Oh, seriously? So this happened to you?
It's similar. Like cause I was overweight for a good portion of my childhood because, you know, I was if I was being a brat, you could throw some chicken nuggets at me and I'd shut up, that kind of thing. And then I definitely remember times of like, oh, we're gonna drink Pepsi One now, and we're gonna have Pepsi One at the house, and
did you know that was because of you?
I think it was her too, but it was maybe like, oh, I'll do this, and as a result, I'll help my Will also. But because I remember I never have for me, it was the food was like the comfort. Like if I was in middle school and in 7th grade and getting bullied every single class period and coming home wanting to just cry, I could just melt cheese on whatever else is in the fridge, and then I didn't want to cry anymore. But then in my senior year of high school, I just decided I was gonna lose a bunch of weight, so I dropped like 80 pounds over the summer.
Oh my God, that's amazing!
I need to get back to do more of that now. I'm trying, but yeah, I relate to that because it's like it. I didn't connect it with health at that point. I just kind of connected it with like, you're not maybe not as simple as you're not good enough, but like something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And then for me, like eating was taking control of my cheese-induced joy.
Right. Well, it's like a guaranteed little high, and like when you're miserable, it's just such a vicious cycle. It's also so hard to like be disgusted by your own self because it's the only thing you can never get away from. So it's like, it's just like, it's just the hardest. So to be uncomfortable in your own skin is like the worst fate, you know?
And it's something that unless you've dealt with it also, those are the only people that are going to be empathetic towards it. Like it's something that I think a lot of people are going to not necessarily be really sensitive to.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to explain.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you've been there, man.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's so hard because when my mom did that to me, I was like kind of bummed out, but I went along with it, and I did Jenny Craig for months, and it was kind of like I was working at the mall because like doing makeup, and because I had quit my job in Wisconsin.
Right.
And I was just sort of alone. Like I had a couple friends downtown who had moved there after college, and we would party on the weekends a little bit, but I was like sort of isolated from everything, and I was just sort of in like sequestered, or what's the word when you're like, and I just was losing weight and
sequestered. That makes sense. You're kind of removed.
Just
you're
removed,
set aside.
And then when I moved to New York, I was so skinny and I felt so hot. And it's like, it sucks because I think that the collective effect of all of this is net negative, but that feeling of, oh my God, I got an internship at the Colbert Report in New York, and I'm 22 and I'm fucking hot and I'm going, like
right.
That was like the best feeling ever.
That's a great moment. So you get the Colbert Report at 22, and it's because you write a kind of a witty cover letter that this person sees and likes.
This writing teacher I had suggested because he knew that I was like out of college and I was just doing this to try to get some background, and he suggested I apply to some places, and I showed him my cover letter, and he was like, you should be crazy. He's like, it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen, but it's like with a crazy cover letter, but with something like this, it's definitely, you're just going to blend in. And I've always like remembered that. So I wrote something crazy about how I like to get high and watch the Colbert Report. I didn't even smoke weed. I was just like, what's edgy? And then like,
right.
This dumb guy read it who's such a pothead and was like, cool. And he like called me up, and I was so depressed because I was living at home, and I was like, yeah. And like, we were just like, he was kind of a weirdo and like a little depressed, and like, I don't know, we just had this amazing conversation where I was being really sarcastic. He was like, oh, come on, you got to get out here. So, yeah.
That's great.
So I moved home in like late August, and then I moved to New York, January 3rd, 2007. So it'll be like 10 years soon.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Cool. So you've been about 10 years. So you get to the Rapport, and what's your experience there?
Well, interns they just
kind of like do
everything.
the busy work.
But yeah, it was just like running all over the city. Great way to get to know the city, I think, because they're making you run all over the place to get props. I I remember it was like really, really bad snowstorm on Valentine's Day, and Colbert was doing this bit where he had to dump out a bag of those. It was the first year that they had those NYC free condoms, and he was going to dump out a garbage bag of them onto his desk. And so I was the sad intern that they sent in the snowstorm all day, and I had just been like rejected by a guy, and just like I had just gotten out of my relationship, and then like been like, oh God, this is so bad. But
Just a
rejected,
chaotic emotional mess.
Yeah, oh yeah. So I was like in a bad place, and I'm like running around collecting free condoms from bars in the city that were like open at noon. It was the saddest day ever. But on my first day, I saw Colbert in his boxers.
Oh, that's great. I've had one interaction with him. I went to the book signing that he and the staff did for the second book. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. And
I'm America and So Can You? Or
that was his first book.
Okay.
The book after that. And it was, I mean, I was going through, and like he just on that one interaction, like he looked me in the eye, he smiled, shook my hand. I said, "Thank you so much, Stephen." And I got why he is where he is.
Yeah. When he looks at you, it just like you're like, oh my God, this is a warm, genuine person. I love him.
Yeah. I just sailed on that handshake for a long time. If I ever get to meet him, or if I ever do stand up on TV and it's his show, I'd just love to say, hey man, I needed that in that.
Oh, that's so nice.
In that moment.
Yeah, I think he's a sweet guy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know him. I'm not like, oh my God, we're tight. Like, I'm like, he seemed really nice when I was interning, when I was a nameless intern for him, you know.
Well, yeah, like he's one of those guys. Like, I went through a huge like several multi-year phase of just being absolutely obsessed with the Report, and I would read a bunch of stuff about him because I'd want to know about him, and when he was on Charlie Rose and all these things, and I can't. There's not much that's been written about him that's negative.
Yeah.
That I can remember. I feel that like certain people, if you interact with enough people, word will get out if you are consistently a jerk. Because I figure if someone, a prominent media personality, freaks out on like one person, I've had a stressful day.
Right. Same. I was just gonna say, and like your whole life is constantly stressed. Like, yeah, if you're in that position.
Oh yeah.
So I'm
and
sure
if you're doing a show 4 days a week.
Yeah.
So how long were you at the Colbert Report?
Oh, just a semester. So I was there January to May or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And are you doing stand-up at this time?
Oh, no. I didn't start stand-up till 4.5 years ago.
Oh, really?
I was in New York for a long time before I did stand-up.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you're doing the Report.
But actually, the writers on the Colbert Report recommended I do stand-up, and I said, absolutely not. So... so there was this day,
all of our reactions.
Yeah. Well, there was this, I just was so shy, and I just hated myself, and I think like I hate looking at myself, and like, you know, so I just was like, that's not on the table. But there was there was a really cool writer there who created Daria, but he was writing at the Colbert after this.
The guy who created Daria wrote for the Colbert Report?
Yeah. And he was so wonderful, and he was my favorite writer. And so one day I was just like in his office, and I was like, hey, how do I get your job? And he was like, just sit here. So I sat in the chair in his office, and because he wasn't the head writer, but I felt like maybe he was. I don't know. A lot of other writers were reporting to him. He wasn't. Yeah.
Like he knows what he's doing.
Well, I think that there was like a lot of other writers coming in his office. So every time any of the other writers came in, he was like, hey, how does Emily get our job? And all the other writers were like, oh, you got to do stand-up. You got to do stand-up. You got to do stand-up. And I was just like, it was like the worst moment. Because I was like, I can never do that. Like, I would never do that. And so I tried to get that job without doing stand-up for the next 5.5 years, and it did not work. So
right.
Yeah.
So then eventually you're like, all right, I'm going to do stand-up.
I mean, it took a really like major event for me to start stand-up.
What was that?
I got raped, and I wrote a joke about it, and I was so sad when it happened. I was like really, really depressed, like really bad.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah, but I mean, it's weird because I'm so like it's weird. Like I have all these like body issues, whatever, but I also feel like I have in a different way, a lot of self-worth. And I would just think that I would be able to get over something like that. Like I would be like, that is a blip on the radar and somebody acted like you didn't have any worth, but you know that you do. But for some reason it doesn't work like that. You know, it doesn't work like when something traumatic happens like that. So I got so depressed, and the only thing that made me feel better was writing a joke. I wrote a joke, and I was like, oh my God, this makes me happy. So then I signed up for a class because I was so afraid. And so then I took a comedy writing class, which was silly, but I'm glad that I did it. I need that sort of extra coddling for something like this. And then...
Well, no, yeah, especially if that's what's spurring you into it.
Yeah.
What was the joke, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's just, I was raped by a guy with the smallest penis I've ever seen. And from what I remember from women's studies classes, rape is supposed to make a man feel powerful, but, I can't remember it, but it's like rape is supposed to make a man feel something like powerful. It's like, how's a guy going to feel powerful when I'm like, no, stop. Is it in? So yeah, it was something like that.
That's a good joke.
It's a structurally sound joke.
Yeah, it's a very structurally sound joke. There's a great setup, great punchline. No, me too. I didn't know what joke structure was for the longest time.
Yeah, but then when you do it, and when you have a great joke, and then you're like, then you check it for structure, it always has it. You know what I mean? It's like,
every joke where you're really satisfied.
Right. Or if you go through tweets and you're like, oh, these ones have the most likes, and then I'm like, because these are the only jokes. The other ones aren't jokes. They're just thoughts with stupid words in them. Like, what do you know? So,
yeah, that's what a lot of my tweets are, because I don't want to tweet my good shit.
Oh, really? I'm not I'm not like protective of my stuff like that. I figure like if that is going to be a problem for me, like I'll cross that. It's a good problem. If somebody's stealing my shit off the internet, or like, I mean, it's not a good problem, but it's like, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. If anybody wants to look at my stuff, like, holy cow, that's great. And also I think people, I don't know.
Well,
I can see
that's actually a pretty good way of thinking about it. And you're doing much better than me. So I think I'll
about that. But I do know that like, with my current job, like they looked at my Twitter when they hired me. So I think that, and I'm not a good tweeter. I don't know how people find the time to tweet all the time. I'm so impressed by people that can multitask like that.
I can't do it. Like I've got to focus on like whatever job I'm doing. Right. Where did you take the class, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, it was Gotham Writers Workshop. It's not affiliated with Gotham.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, Comedy Club.
Yeah. And that was a stand-up class?
It was a stand-up class, and the teacher is, he was, he did a good job teaching us about structure and a little bit about history, and introducing us to, some old comics, and here's a Stephen Wright joke, or just, like we looked a lot at Stephen Wright because I
love him.
Because
that school of comedy,
it's very easy to identify. Here's the premise. Here's the opinion. Here's the twist. So it was cool, and I mean, it feels silly now, but because I think the only way you can really do stand-up is to just get thrown in, and nothing is going to shield you. Yeah, nothing's going to protect you from the failure. No class can save you from that. But I think if you need an extra hand-holding, which I definitely did, it was good.
No, yeah, I could imagine. So, and that's because I've had differing feelings on comedy classes, but I did take one, and I was in one in college where we covered like clowning and like sketch. Yeah, I've done clown and all that stuff, and then we did stand up as well, and that's kind of what I grabbed to, because otherwise, if I just go to the bad open mic at the sports bar first, that's a longer uphill fight.
Oh, then having to figure it out yourself. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Especially because it's harder to put your finger on why certain comedy is bad. But you're like, I think that this is bad, but I don't know why.
Don't know why I think it's bad.
Right. Or like, And I think so much of starting out comedy is like you're just blinded by other people that have confidence, and like the more you do it, the more you realize that like confidence, it doesn't mean a good joke. I mean, it doesn't mean that that their work is quality. But I mean, it can help you put a reason to, that guy just has confidence, but there's no actual punchlines, which is just all of Los Angeles I'm talking about.
Well,
okay, minus like 200 incredibly talented people, but.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I haven't been to Los Angeles yet, but I know the comic who's like, for me it's the regional person who's like really popular, but I would watch him and go, well, you're a great performer, but this is like watching a cover band. Like, yes, you're gonna play the Led Zeppelin song, or you're gonna play the blues song. It's
right.
You're basically, it's, I don't want to say it's not, maybe hack's the way to describe it, but like, I get that you're charismatic, but I want to know.
I want more.
Exactly, I want more.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, like, listen, there's like so many, and I've done festivals where I've met LA comedians who are great and I admire, but more often than not, when an LA comic comes to New York and they're like, oh, and coming from LA, I mean, my boyfriend and I just like look at each other and like when that happens at a show, and then it's like just cringe until like we figure out what's going on, because way more often than not, they're gonna one of my friends was just in LA and was like, this is a place where people use woke as a punchline. I was like, just saying the word woke is not a punchline.
Exactly. It's you're white, and saying words that black people use that's not enough.
Or just like, oh, I'm gonna use a trendy word. That's not
Or like a lot of jokes about brunch. I'm kind of tired of brunch jokes.
Right. Yeah.
You kind of after every few years, you're like, okay, I think we can move on from.
Right, or like write a brunch joke, but like write the best, funniest brunch joke that has ever. Don't make brunch the punchline, right?
Yeah.
Take brunch and make now. Yeah, it's actually, I think like hackneyed premises are like a really fun opportunity to surprise people. Yeah. I think that no premise is off limits, no matter how tired, but just like, it's like this is this golden opportunity where people think they've heard it all, and maybe you have this brunch joke that is completely bonkers and looks at it from a brand new perspective, and that's like even more exciting than writing the only joke about, I don't know, lemurs or something. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and especially because I've been around jokes and comedy for like 9 years yesterday.
Oh, congratulations. That's
thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm hanging in. It's I love it still. They can't take that away from us, Emily. Just from when you go, oh, I didn't see it going that way. That's great.
Yeah.
I get impressed by that. Like, there's something to like, and I think I've heard people talk about like somebody like Jerry Seinfeld or someone like that, where they talk about the craftsmanship of the jokes. If we're going back to the setup punch twist, I put Stephen Ray in a similar category in that the jokes are just where you just go, damn it, that's great. It's like, for me, it's like watching someone play like a really wicked guitar solo, like really complicated, and it goes through a bunch of different scales, and there's like crazy kind of things. I love stuff like that for the craftsmanship. Not all of it touches like my heart and soul the same way. Yeah. Whereas, and this is something I've learned since I've started doing like storytelling shows and like my own one-man show, is I also love like guys like Mike Birbiglia, or like what I would compare as like the comedic equivalent of like a great 4-chord rock song, where it's like, that was great, and I want more of it.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. I like that.
Thanks. So after you start doing stand up after the class, I'm also curious, because I imagine I have this idea that like starting as a writer helps, at least because starting as a writer kind of helps a little bit when the transition into stand-up.
I think it's so different for everyone. I mean, the bad parts of starting as a writer is that you can get really frustrated when things work on the page. Like, a joke works on the page, you could send it to a million people and they would most of them would like it, and then you say it and it doesn't work. It's a very frustrating hump, and it's hard to learn how to write just with your mouth, and write on stage, and to, so and it's frustrating because you don't want to as a writer, but it also is very helpful. Yeah, it's very helpful. And but I mean, I don't know. My boyfriend is a comic, and he is not a writer. He's a comic first, and we have different approaches to things. But I think it's really interesting dating him, and seeing him work things out on stage and just be so loose. I think that's like, I think as a writer, sometimes you get. It's hard to let go of your the economy of words to go all over the place. But basically, what happens is you take something, you say it. You might say it wrong, then you say it wrong a million different ways, and you add a bunch of words, and that is like painful as a writer. And then it starts to just shrink itself on its own.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like it gets bloated and it shrinks. And I mean, I'm comfortable with it now, but I think in the beginning it was like, I don't know if it's just as a writer or a person or whatever, but it's just like fucking horrifying writing jokes in the beginning that you have to actually say out of your mouth while people are looking at you. What are we, crazy? This is the worst.
Right. No, and that's like the equivalent of like jazz versus classical.
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, yeah.
Like you're gonna be like, all right, let's see where this goes, man.
Right.
Let's find the spaces in between.
Not comfortable
it took
with
me
that.
the longest time to get to that because I'm from like the Stephen Wright, Dimitri Martin, Mitch Hedberg school where you have the jokes and they're tight, and then you go up there and you stick to that. It took me a while to be able to get comfortable with other things in the room, or just the idea
letting go.
Yeah, just letting go of the need for a parachute.
Right.
Or like a safety net to just kind of like.
But you have so many built-in safety nets because you can always rein it in and change the subject and go to a place or transition to a subject that you know that you have like good material on, or even good crowd work material on. So it's like you can let yourself go and lose it for a second because we have the skill set and the material to bring it back in. So it's like way less scary. But just like jumping off a cliff with nothing is just, I think just starting comedy is just the hardest thing in the whole world. And I'm so glad to be over the first hump. Just the I don't have any material and I don't know what's funny hump. Because that just is, that's no good.
No. Oh yeah. It's and
it's
just
bad.
and just and then just like, oh, I hope I don't suck at this.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah.
No. Well, I'm certainly glad that you're doing it because I think you're really funny, and I think you're really and I think your writing's really really sharp, and it's the kind of sharpness that's like laugh, ouch, think. Which is I like.
You. I think.
Which I like.
I think that's good.
No, I'm saying it in a good
way. Yeah, thank you.
So let me ask you just a couple of other things because I know you got to get out of here soon, and I don't
gotta go host an open mic, my glamorous life.
I think because you said earlier when you were talking about the how do I get your job, I have given you that message. I don't know if you remember how I messaged you on Facebook. It's like, you write for TV. How do you write for TV?
Oh yeah, how do you get that job?
I am sad and confused. That was I didn't say that, but that was kind of the subtext. I'm sad and staring at a black void of what I feel my future will be unless I get some direction.
That's how I feel too.
Yeah. So could we talk a little bit about writing for shows and submitting for shows and like what that process is and what yours is?
Well, I think it's everybody. Well, okay. So for late night, which is first of all, I haven't really. I've written for. I was a staff writer on one show that was canceled after its first season.
So that's when you were in Miami.
That's when I was writing for it in Miami. It was on Fusion, and then when I moved back here, I just needed a job, and I got an interview at TV Land, and so I'm actually writing for TV Land now still, and that is more like commercials for their own original show, their own original comedies that they have, and sketches that people do online and just like very short scripts. So I would say like right now I'm working on a really excellent show called Teachers, and like anytime I get to write a little sketch for them, it's like really thrilling because they're so funny and great, but it's not really writing the show. So I want to clarify that I'm not big time. But I think, okay, so the show that I was on before was like a late night show. And with that,
with like topical monologue and
yeah, it was just like every day was just like get up early, listen to the news, drive to work with the news on, get there, we all pitch stuff. And then they pick what they want to write about and like assign it, and then it's like the news with jokes basically, but also from the perspective of the host, was a very smart journalist, and so she was really particular. We couldn't really take a loosely correct way of saying what was going on. We had to be very correct but also funny. So it was so wonderful and so hard. But how I got into it was, I mean, I've been writing scripts and stuff since I figured out that you could write scripts. So, and just like submitting them to contests and stuff like that. But I think my first, like, a couple things happened. One is like 3 years ago, I got into NBC's Late Night Writers Workshop, which was like, that's like basically write a packet, and so that was cool, and I think it made me believe that I could do it. And at the time, I was working for a blog. I worked there for 6 years. I worked for Spark Notes, so I was like their editorial director by the time I left, but I was a blog editor there for a teen blog for a long time. So I'm like, I don't know if I can transition from funny writing for teenagers online to like actually writing for TV. So that was a big thing. And then I was writing with another editor. We were writing a script together, and he had a manager, and I met the manager and I emailed the manager. I'm not sure if I would recommend doing this, but then again, it sort of worked in a roundabout way. I emailed the manager every Monday for a year and asked him if he would represent me and like would send him new things that I was proud of that like were published or whatever. And he only occasionally responded, but he didn't shoo me away, so I just kept doing it. This is humiliating, but so then like after about a year, his assistant emailed me, and this is what I'm saying. It's like hard work and good luck, like what everyone says.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Hey, I'm his assistant, and I'll send you packets if you are okay with taking them from an assistant. And the reason I'm doing this is, one, because you've been emailing him for a year, and two, because I'm dating your friend from college." And I was like, oh my God. So it was just good luck in that way. But also it would have never happened if I didn't work really hard on getting stuff published that I could send it to him every day, every Monday, so it's like a mix, I think. And then, so she started sending me packets. I was doing packets, not getting anything. And then a friend of mine who's a comic and a writer on Last Week Tonight said that he knew somebody that was looking for comedy writers because he knew that I was doing all this stuff. So
who was it, or do you want to tell me later?
Josh Gondelman. No, he's a wonderful, perfect man.
I love Josh.
Yeah, he's great. So he helped me because he just thought of me because I was doing this work, and it was so nice of him to think of me. So for the job that I got, they just said, "Hey, submit your favorite packet." I had submitted a packet to Billy on the Street that I thought was the best thing I'd ever written in my whole life, and I was devastated when I didn't get that job. So I sent them the Billy on the Street packet, and they loved it. And I was like, "Thank you." And they were like, "Okay, cool. Why don't you come down to Miami next week and start your life over?" And I was like, "Oh boy."
And when you submit a packet, do you get the format from them? And they kind of tell you what you want,
what they want. They're all different, but it's like for like Fallon or something, like that would be like, I think I did one in the
monologue
spring.
Jokes.
No, not a couple, 3 pages.
3 pages.
3 to 5 pages, I think I did over in the spring at some point. And they don't give you a lot of time. By the time your agent gets it and passes it on to you, you might have 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. Really lucky if you get a week and a weekend, but you're canceling all your plans, you're rushing home, you're not going to open mics, you're only doing the shows, and if it's not a big deal show, you cancel, everything cancels. it's like a tragedy every time a packet comes in. And just so that you can, I mean, if you have a full-time job like I do, you know, it's like, it's really stressful, but I mean, I'm happy to have the opportunity to do them, but it's stressful.
Absolutely.
And then so it's like 3 to 5 pages of monologue jokes. Usually they want like desk bits, like ideas for them to do like games and stuff. And then sometimes they have like really specific, a lot of times they have very specific requests. And sometimes they ask you to submit sketches and So obviously I've not mastered it. Otherwise I would get every job I apply for. But it's also like, I'm just like, I have to remind myself that like, I don't know if this is boring, but like I worked in internet and blogs for so long and I have a lot of context there. And I just have to remind myself that TV is the same way. Like I just have to put in my time because I don't know, you know, you get a list of who the executive producers are on these shows and who the host is, and I never know them personally, and it's very frustrating because I'm like, I'm at a place with my stand-up where I feel like if I knew you personally from stand-up, you would probably like me, you know, or if I knew you from writing, you would probably like me, and I know that, and it's not like white girls are trending right now, so it's not like people are like, oh God, we need some white women on our show,
right?
So, it's not like they're going to read Emily Winter and be like, wait, let's take a second look at that. So I think that you always need a second way in. You can't just write an excellent packet. Not saying that all of mine or any of mine have been excellent, but you need, you got to be who they're looking for in one way or another personally, or, you know, I'm really happy that they're trying to make writers' rooms more diverse. I think that, you know,
I think
it's
that's
wonderful.
a step in the right direction.
It's wonderful, and I'm so happy for it. But it doesn't mean that I'm getting, you know, I'm like, it's not good for me job by job, which I'm not bitter about, but it's just like the truth, you know?
No, I know what you mean. It doesn't automatically mean that you're going to get a job, nor does it mean that I'll never get a job.
Right. Well, actually, you and I are in the same boat. We're white, and being a woman is no longer a asset.
Yeah. I've tried to never think like that because I figured that's probably a wrongheaded way to think about that.
I think so, but I'm motivated solely by just like I don't know. So sometimes I need like it's helpful for me to tell myself. Well, first of all, it's the truth, and I'd rather have it be this way than anything else. You know, writers' rooms need to be diverse.
I think,
and it's just been too much of a white boys club for too long, you know. Then you can't not say or not ever think the other part, especially if you're not getting jobs. Like I think it's okay for me to say like, I don't have an advantage. I've had many advantages getting to this point, you know, like I've had my parents put me through college. Like that's not a thing that a lot of people can say. And like, that's an advantage. And that's partly due to being white. You know what I mean? So it's like,
no, that makes sense.
It's not, you can't like isolate it, but yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying. I wasn't trying to put you on blast or anything like that. I was basically throwing my thought out there and then seeing your reaction to it and then reevaluating my thought. That's how I've decided to grow as a human.
Yeah. No,
I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but
I think it's not
every day is a process.
I mean, I don't like to. It's more than just one thing. It's more than just, oh, I didn't get this job because I'm white. Absolutely not true. Like
you're. Someone else might have just had something that spoke to him a little bit.
But also it's
more.
like my history. Like why am I even up for this job? Because in part because I've had all of the advantages of being a white person. So even getting this far is advantages of being white. So that's why I'm not like, oh, I'm mad about this. I couldn't ever be mad, but it's just like, right. Like what I'm saying is I don't have a TV writing job right now.
Well, no, I know what you mean, which is also one of the frustrating things of the business, but also what I try to always come back to. And granted, I haven't had a writing job, or I'm getting to a point where the stuff I'm doing is I'm excited about, so I feel that I'm on my way towards that.
Yeah.
What I try to think and what keeps me from going crazy in the middle of the night, with the exception of like when my girlfriend's like, you should have a job. A lot of it is I just try to think of what I can control and what I can't, and I just try to focus on that.
So good. Yeah. That I feel like that's so much better than like worrying about, right. And I do that with everything. Like I sometimes can spin out on things that I can't control. You know, and it's silly. I trip up myself. Like my problems are caused by me spinning out on ideas that I shouldn't focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think you've got the right attitude.
Well, let's hope we can keep our plate spinning in the most hilarious way possible, Emily. Is there anything of yours we can plug?
Oh, sure. Cool. What
I can write it in the description of the
I have a feminist Twitter account called feminist_bro,
which I follow, and it's really funny. I was willing, because I know you had some trouble with the profile picture of it. I have a bunch of backwards baseball caps, and I look like an asshole when I wear my baseball hat backwards.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So it's feminist_bro.
Feminist_bro, and I'm at Emily McWinter on Twitter as well. But yeah, that was because I stole a picture off the internet of a guy wearing a douchey looking guy wearing a shirt that said feminist, and then his lawyer contacted me and I had to take it down. So it's fine. I went on a stock photo site and grabbed another one, and it's fine.
Excellent. And you have a monthly show in Brooklyn?
I do. I have a monthly show in Brooklyn called Back Fat Variety. We're celebrating our 4-year anniversary this month. I'm so excited. And I host a weekly show called Side Ponytail at Over the 8 with a bunch of comedians. There's like 5 producers on that show, but it's really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, this was great. We got deep.
Yeah, I dig it. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, well, Emily just left, and that was one of the best conversations I've had on this podcast. If you enjoyed that as well, please be sure to share this, because I really enjoyed that chat, and I want people to hear it, because I thought it was really great, and I connected with her on a lot of different levels, and it was great to chat with her. Thank you guys for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Between Awesome and Disaster. You can also check out my website, willcarryisfunny.com, for my upcoming stand-up shows. Follow me on Twitter, YouTube, all of that stuff. And folks, and make sure you follow Emily as well. And thank you. I appreciate you being here. And I'll see you next week, Between Awesome and Disaster. Goodbye, everyone.